What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your pre-market watch list. Today there really isn't anything to look at. You could pretty much just turn your computers off and just go to sleep. Honestly, that's pretty much the way this market's going. So I guess what we'll do is we'll just go over the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, just so that way everyone's kind of caught up to speed on at least the overall market. We'll touch on PLBY because PLBY was that short that we had mentioned just a couple days ago, and then the stock ended up crashing like a total of 25%, or maybe almost close to 30% over 3 days. So we'll touch on that maybe a little bit. I mean, NEO, sure, we could touch on it. Tesla, I mean, we could touch on all these stocks, but they're pretty much just trading kind of blah right now. There isn't really much that is screaming, buy me, buy me, buy me. So we'll first just start with the S&P. So if you'll look at the S&P 500, we have sold down back to the 9 moving average. So that's the blue line. So if you watch this channel and stay tuned, from last week till today, we have been mentioning that the market was getting ready to pull back to the 9-day moving average. So that has successfully happened. We are past that moment now. Now it's all about what comes next. So I anticipated that this is where our S&P 500 was going to pull back to, and then it was going to try to continue trending higher, or it was just going to be a small pullback, not a gigantic correction. So we'll see if that holds true. And it was all on the premise that the NASDAQ was going to finally hit resistance near all-time highs in the regression trend, which that did happen. So back when the market was trading at about 331, we said we were going to go to, we're going to go all the way at the all-time highs. That's where we'll find our resistance. That's where we're going to pull back. And we will most likely pull back to the 4-hour regression trend, which is this red line. So when I change the time frame, you will see that the market has effectively pulled back to the 4-hour regression trend. So now that we've done that, now there's a good chance the market is going to try to get dip bought today, or consolidate, or even turn into somewhat of a green move. So we're looking for the NASDAQ to support the prices of, pretty much this 334.20s, this 334.72, 334.80 price, okay? So if the market on the NASDAQ can successfully hold here, then the S&P 500, the NASDAQ are probably going to start moving in unison back towards all-time highs. As that occurs, we should see some of your bigger stocks, bigger names, bigger market cap stocks starting to have some green movement, or back to having some green movement. So again, right now we're anticipating that the market here on the NASDAQ is going to try to sustain this price point for the day. So we'll put it here and then we'll go look at what it appears to be on the 1 minute. So you can see yesterday, and also yesterday, again, our price point was actually here yesterday. Yesterday was around 334.47. This is where we recommended buying a bounce yesterday. This was our price point that we anticipated markets could fall to before they would bounce. So we went all the way down and bounced, held, bounced after hours, come down, and we're still bouncing around these prices. So if the markets are going to sustain, we expect they're going to do it somewhere in this price zone, and then the market's going to try to move back upwards on the NASDAQ. All right, so now we'll jump over and take a look at PLBY. Still have a little short on this play. We shorted the other day at the top here at about 42.50 or 42.80, somewhere around there. And then we covered most of it on this down day. And so we're still holding a little bit. And our anticipation is that the Playboy stock can continue lower, but we might have to retrace all the way back up to 37.52 before there's going to be enough sellers to bring the market back down. So we might continue to look to be bearish on this stock, or be more bearish as the prices get back to 37.80 to the price point of 39. So this is kind of our new selling location for the stock PLBY. The 37.80s to 37.90s has pretty much become our new selling zone. to try to roll the market down on PLBY. Now, if we were wrong, then we could get squeezed up again. But I don't think that's going to happen here. I feel as if the NFT craze is starting to subside. Playboy is going to come back down to earth a little bit more. So we might be looking to be more bearish and reshort or add to the positions as the markets come back into 37.80 to 39. All right. Now, I will touch on NEO briefly because this is something that I just made a video about the other day, and I'm like, has the stock finally bottomed? We are definitely getting to a pinnacle moment for, for NEO. Part of the reason that I had wanted to make the video and be a little bit more long bias is because we are getting towards the end of the wedge. And as we've gotten towards the end of this wedge, it did appear as we've been having more buying volume in this last little dip, and I kind of like the way that appeared. Secondly, the markets have been trading really well on the upside, so I'm like, you know what, maybe it's just time for this to finally break this wedge and head back to the upside. So we're still following it. Right now, this morning, it's just kind of flat and holding. I think today is a very pinnacle day because you can see we had recently dropped here at 37. Big down day. Then we got bought up really good. Pushed right back to that resistance, and the 9 moving average came down. But the same day, right, if you zoom in here, this day we had pushed up really nicely, and I recommended it as a long that day too. Here, I'm like, this could be pushed long. Then it sells down all the way, and then it comes all the way back up. So it retraced all those gains. And then the next day, we go for a long, we hit that resistance again, doesn't break. We get pushed down, but then it does recover pretty nicely by the end of the day. And then overnight, we've kind of been trending down, but we haven't yet really broken down. So it does still have the potential to kind of break over some pre-market levels and start grinding back to the 37.60. If in the event we can get this NEO back over 37.60, that's where we should shift this trend and start pushing NEO back to the upside. So I do still want to be more long bias NEO rather than short bias for the moment. So we'll see. Time will tell whether or not this ends up giving us what we need. What's probably good to touch on is Bitcoin. I can't remember the last time that I updated anybody here on YouTube regarding Bitcoin, but you can still see that my line here is on the chart. I think I mentioned this not too long ago that Bitcoin was in a big divergence. This is something that we've been watching for months on end, pretty much since this high. When Bitcoin had put in this high at 56,000, we said the market's diverging. So at that time, when the market had finally kind of hit this top and pulled back at 57,000, we at that point started building the bearish assumption that this was going to eventually roll over. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. But again, we were watching for a divergence, whereas most people were looking for this to keep running into all-time highs endlessly. So we are starting to roll over and reverse on the Bitcoin market because of not necessarily that divergence. It's really just because there's just not enough momentum. The RSI just tells you what's happening behind the scenes. The RSI isn't really making up the future. I guess it kind of does in a way, but to first start a divergence, there needs to be less momentum and less buying pressure and more selling pressure, this and that, right? The RSI doesn't start that. People start that. Then the RSI finds and reads what those people have been doing, and then it gives you a visual on the RSI. Once you have a visual on the RSI and people can see it, then that visual can manipulate the psychology of an individual's mind, which then in the future causes them to trade a certain way. So since this first pop, the market basically said we're diverging. So therefore, there is a good chance we can see Bitcoin a little bit lower, just because overall the market's been diverging. So don't be surprised if we see a little bit more downside in the Bitcoin market. And that's really all we're going to cover for today. Like I said, markets are definitely slower. So for those that are maybe newer to trading, first time watching my videos, I appreciate you guys tuning in. We try to make these watch list videos every single day to help you, kind of identify things that are moving, things people are watching. And if you stick with them and tune in every single day, eventually you'll pretty much just learn how to trade and analyze stocks, because it's pretty much what we do every single day. And then on the flip side, if you're new to trading or you're confused as to why things are so slow, don't expect the markets to pick up in volatility until pretty much next October. So you're pretty much going to be living in this sort of environment, for the next couple months. And then October will come around. Penny stocks will be a little bit more active. Stocks are going to be a little bit more active. But throughout that time period, from pretty much now till October, there's going to be a few stocks that pump up here, a few stocks that pump up there, but it's not going to be endlessly day in, day out that it's happening. And then you're going to want to start gearing your attention towards earnings, because that's just an instant. Earnings announcements create volatility. So throughout the summer period, people are more geared up in looking at earnings because it helps provide volatility. So in a market that doesn't have volatility, it gives the volatility, and we all just kind of flock to it. So we're going to be starting to focus on earnings more often going through the summer seasons. And then as the summer seasons roll around, we don't really need to rely on earnings as much to find volatility, so then we won't be focusing on those as much. So that's pretty much what's going to be happening here until October. So everybody take care. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.